Okay bang, hari ni kita just nak tengok ada launching OSMO Action. So hari ni kita ada nak buat sedikit live reaction terhadap satu kamera baru, OSMO Action. So kamera ni datang daripada DJI. So kita orang duduk Malaysia kan, biasalah DJI tak ada pun bagi OSMO Action untuk review secara direct. So apa yang kita orang buat, kita ulas sikit lah, kita tengok dekat YouTube, kita tengok apa dia punya kelebihan dia. So kita nanti daripada situ kita tengoklah macam mana, adakah dia lebih bagus pada GoPro ke, ataupun dia setara ataupun separa dengan GoPro ke. Kita tengok dulu. Tengok dulu.
DJI, the OSMO Action is on the market, having been announced today. Hi, I'm Ash from Droning On, and finally, the OSMO Action is public, and I don't have to be quiet and discreet about it, I can shout about it now. Well, we've got one of the first of these units, and we've had it since March, and so we've had loads of opportunity to film and test with it. If you want to see our unboxing review or our full feature test in 4K, you can click the links in the video description to watch them now. Alternatively, just press on one of the end screen icons now, on either the left or the right. Be sure to comment with your thoughts, give this video a thumbs up, and of course click that subscribe button for lots more videos just like this. Enjoy the reviews.
Bawah ada dekat
ni ah.
show more tu.
Ni first look. Show more.
Okay, part 1.
Part 1.
Part 1 tadi.
Finally, I can tell you about and even show you the brand new 4K waterproof action camera from DJI, introducing the OSMO Action. Hi, I'm Ash from Droning On, and yes, the OSMO Action has finally been announced. We actually received this little thing back in March, and we've been playing with it ever since so that we can bring you this really early review. Now, as you all know, the brilliant OSMO Pocket came out last year, and I absolutely love this little device. You might remember in my early reviews, I was really confused about why reviewers kept comparing it to the GoPro Hero range. Well, it's a completely different device, as I said at the time. While the OSMO Pocket is designed for cinematic, beautiful shots, which are perfectly stabilized, it's not designed for rugged action sports. That's where the OSMO Action comes in, to compete with GoPro and aimed at more of the rough and rugged, throwing around type sports, mounting this thing wherever you want to mount it. So I know you're really keen to get a closer look at the OSMO Action, so without further ado, let's take a look at it now. So, introducing the brand new DJI OSMO Action, and I've been wanting to tell you guys about this for a long time. Now, I've had this so early that I haven't even got a box or an instruction manual for it. It's that new and fresh. So literally, I'm probably very lucky to have been one of the very first to see this beautiful brand new little product. So first of all, I'm just going to take the protective stickers off the front and back of it, and let's give you first of all the highlights about this brand new product. So first of all, this is the OSMO Action. It's also known as the AC101, and just to give a comparison really with its biggest competitor, the GoPro Hero 7 Black, let's go through some of those statistics. So first of all, they've both got a 1/2-inch CMOS sensor, which is going to give you 12 megapixel camera photos and video. They both support 8 times slow motion, and they're both going to give you 4K at 60 frames per second. They both shoot RAW, and in terms of the size as well, they are both roughly about the same size, although the OSMO Action is slightly longer and a little bit thicker, but the GoPro is actually a little bit taller. Last of all they both have a removable battery as well, which is really good because it means you're not going to be stuck when you're out and about and you're wanting to film more things. And see, the battery just pops out like that.
Okay.
So next, what makes the OSMO Action better than the GoPro Hero 7 Black? If you were looking to buy one or the other, well, First of all, this camera has a beautiful 2.25 full colour touchscreen on the back. And when you're out and about with these action cameras, I've always hated just how tiny the rear cameras are on the GoPro series. They don't really let you see the footage clear enough to know whether it's any good. So having that big display there is lovely. The resolution of this screen is 640 by 360 versus the 2-inch smaller screen on the Hero 7 Black, which is only 480 by 320. Now onto the other lovely feature of this one. It's got a front screen, as the Hero 7 Black does, but this one is colour. Plus, it's also 1.4 inches versus the 1 inch of the Hero 7 Black. If you are running around doing selfie videos, having a colour screen on the front is much more valuable than a black and white screen. You're going to get a much better representation of how your end footage is going to look like. Now, just like when the Mavic Air was released, it upped the bit rate to 100 megabits per second for video footage, and the Osmo Action is no exception. It captures 100 megabits per second at 4K versus the 78 megabits per second of the Hero 7 Black. You can take the Osmo Action underwater down to an impressive 12 meters, just like this, without any protective case. The Hero 7 will only go down to its rated 10 meters. However, it's worth noting that both of them do have the option of a waterproof housing, where you can then take them both down to 60 meters. We mentioned the battery earlier. Well, the Osmo Action has a 1300 milliamp battery instead of the 1220 milliamps of the Hero 7 Black. But the biggest point of all is that this Osmo Action will only cost apparently around $299 versus $399 of the Hero 7 Black. So you're saving $100 with this camera, and in my opinion, from what I've just read out, this has a much better specification. Now, as with any new product that's released, where it's better, it will also perhaps have some weaknesses. And in terms of this, compared to the Hero 7 Black, it has no GPS, but I have to comment, I can't think of any occasion where I've wanted a GPS on an action camera. At the moment, it has no live streaming support, so we're not able to stream live to Facebook or YouTube, but I'm fairly sure that as the app evolves, those features will be added as well. The Osmo Action has 2 microphones, the Hero 7 Black has 3, so you've got 1 less microphone there, but as part of our testing, we will be testing the audio as well. And finally, this has no night photo mode, but again, I think that's probably something that they will be able to add via the app at a later stage. And finally, in terms of weight, the Hero 7 Black is quoted to be 116 grams with battery. The Osmo Action with the battery fitted comes in slightly heavier at 125 grams, but that difference is minimal considering that you are getting a really nice camera here with some additional functionality. I must say on that, the build quality of the Osmo Action is absolutely lovely. This feels like a very premium device. Now, while the Osmo Pocket also felt very, very well built, it is clearly much more of a fragile device, and it's not designed for action sports or being thrown around, and that's why I was very surprised when the early reviews of the Pocket kept comparing it to the Hero 7 Black. DJI clearly know that cameras such as the Osmo Pocket are just not really designed for action and being thrown around because of these delicate gimbals, and that's why they've now introduced the Osmo Action. So sent to me in this bundle with the Osmo Action were a set of ND filters, and I've got ND filters here from ND4 up to ND32. I've also got this housing here, which you will recognise has the GoPro mounting on the bottom. And that's handy because it means essentially this camera will mount wherever you've mounted a GoPro in the past. And also in terms of mounting, they've not copied the actual mounting mechanism itself. They have obviously used the same GoPro bracket style here. However, they have this intricate, clever little mounting design, which I prefer. I've never liked the GoPro slide mounts that you slide these onto. This one instead secures down to a mounting surface, and then you simply rotate it to lock it into place. So that's really nice as well. Again, you just simply dock it down, rotate it, and that then locks into place. As you know, on the market there are tons of mounting options with GoPro devices, and therefore anything you currently have a GoPro mount attached onto today will work with this new mount together with the Osmo Action. So unlike the lens of the GoPro Hero 7, which does sort of unlock by rotating it and then pulling off, the lens on this is simply screw on. So you simply unscrew the clear lens that comes with it, and you can now attach one of your ND filter lenses very easily and very simply like that. So changing lenses is very quick and easy. And obviously,
ada
again, with
GoPro
third-party
lama.
accessories, no doubt there'll be lots of other options to attach onto this, probably including further
Tapi saya tak
wide-angle
boleh tukar.
lenses and similar.
Lens tak boleh tukar.
Also, just whilst we're talking
Just
about that
for-
camera as well, the FOV is 5 degrees less than the Hero 7 Black, but there are different FOV options on this camera, as we'll see. Now, I don't know the pricing of these additional accessories. Maybe they'll come with it. I don't know this time. It's very early, and so we'll have to obviously look for the announcement, which you'll probably have already seen if you're now watching this video. So anyway, without further ado, now let's take a look at the menu system when we turn it on.
Weh, ni gempak
So
ah.
just before we
Serius.
start,
Depan
I'll introduce the
belakang
buttons around the
ada
OSMO action
screen.
first. On the top, we've got a power button here, which is obviously for
okay,
turning it on
dia
and
punya
off.
mic
You can
satu.
also turn the display on and off as well when you're not using the display by simply single pressing on that button. We then got our
button dia
shutter
lain
button on the right here for starting and stopping video, and also, of course, taking photos. Looking at the side, we've got a button here which helps to release the
Dia punya
battery,
casing macam
whereby you
Bluetooth,
slide this one first, and then you slide that one on top, and then the battery pops out very easily. Just on the side here, if we push this button down, that slides open, and now we've got our USB-C port and also
Sebenarnya
our
kalau macam ni
SD
dia
card
menyenangkan
slot
tau.
in
Sebab
there.
kalau tengok
Close that
GoPro,
back down and you'll
dia
notice
punya
right
SDS
here,
mini
there's
SD
a
card
QS,
tempat bateri
and
kan?
that
micro SD
stands
card
for
tu dia letak dekat tempat
quick
bateri.
shortcut
Memang
or
susah gila
something
nak
like
buat
that.
kan.
You can basically
GoPro
assign
buka
any
menu,
action that you want to
tak
this
asing.
button, so that when you press it, you can
tempat
toggle
bateri baru
between
boleh
the most
masuk
commonly
dia punya
used
SD.
features
Ni
or
dia asingkan
modes that
tempat
you
dia.
prefer. So to power it on,
lebih
you simply
user
press
friendly,
and hold the button on top, like that. Very, very
Cepat,
quick
siut.
startup time, and the camera is
Ui,
ready in a matter
laju gila.
of seconds. Now, the first thing
Kalau
you'll see when you
GoPro
get
nak
this
on
camera
pe,
is this
bertahun
activation
nak hidup.
message.
Lagi-lagi
It does
kalau
mean
yang
you
boleh tak
can't
update.
record until you've activated the camera.
Oh, dia bukan
Now,
Mimo.
unlike the Osmo Pocket,
Mimo
this
pakai
camera
DJI
has
Mimo.
Wi-Fi and Bluetooth.
Dia tak
And
pakai,
so
dia
what you do
bukannya
is
pakai
connect your
DJI
phone
GoPro
to
ataupun Go,
it
dia pakai
immediately.
Mimo.
Fire up the Mimo app,
Sama
and
macam
that
Osmo
activates
Pocket
it
lah.
within seconds. So
Dia
not a big
dia
issue.
dulu.
So the QS button is really handy. Pressing it once will bring up a quick switch menu, but also if you press and hold it,
Oh, dah di fit button.
you'll hear a little sound effect, and look, now our front screen is enabled. So
Itu
by
yang
pressing
nampak
that
lah
button, you
bila.
basically flick between the two displays, and this front
Depan
screen is
belakang boleh nampak.
absolutely
At least
lovely. It's
ada
full
indicator
colour.
kalau
If you
macam
compare
ni.
the size of it to
Kau
the
tahu
Osmo
framing kat
Pocket,
mana
just as
kan.
an example, you can see how
Kalau
much bigger it is.
berbandingan
And there were
dengan-
lots of complaints with Pocket
Nak bandingkan
owners
GoPro.
that this screen was
So,
too
Pocket ada
small
tak?
Pocket ada tak?
using
Tapi dia
selfie.
just
Well, I
masuk
prefer
ke
the
selfie
bigger screen
mana.
of this, but I appreciate as
Besar
well
sikit
the
daripada-
Osmo Pocket is designed to be
daripada Osmo Pocket
portable.
punya screen.
Putting a bigger screen on it would make the
Tapi
device
Razer
bigger.
dia nampak
So
kurang.
no problem there for me. It's worth noting that this screen has no touch on it. Unfortunately, that would be asking a bit too much.
Kalau ada
It
touch
is
screen
depan
just
tak
the
ada
back
touch,
screen
screen
that's
depan
touch
tak ada touch.
sensitive.
Mungkin
But
next
still,
punya
if
tu.
you're doing selfie, lovely to be able to see that screen there. So let's have a quick look at the menu features. So we're going to switch the screen back by
Faiz.
pressing and holding
Abang
that
Faiz dah
QS
masuk, Abang
button.
Faiz dah masuk.
The back screen will now come back
Welcome,
to life.
welcome.
And again, it's very similar to the Pocket interface, whereby by swiping in certain directions,
Abang
you'll
Aboy
get
pun dah
different
masuk.
options. So if we swipe
Baik,
from the
baik,
left
baik,
first of
baik,
all,
baik.
that takes us to our media library to view footage that we've already recorded. Swipe from the top, and that's where you get all
Oh,
of your
full menu.
main
Full
settings.
menu.
So
Gila.
you've got connect there
Simple,
for connecting to
simple.
Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Quick switch is to
Kalau
configure
kalau
our
guna
button on the
bukanlah nak bawa
left-hand
perbandingan
side.
sangat kan, tapi
Custom is
kalau
custom
tengok GoPro
modes
punya
and
style,
settings,
nak swipe
obviously
atas,
loads of
swipe
things
bawah,
in there.
swipe kiri
Pro
kanan.
mode is a little bit like pro
Agak
mode on
menyusah
the
kan
Osmo
sebenarnya, kita tak
Pocket,
tahu
where
mana
you
satu.
can define
Which one is
ISO
which?
and
Setting
other
ke,
settings.
playback ke, kita tak tahu mana
Also,
satu.
is the
So
rotation.
ini
So
Sekali
you
cepat
take
dia
the
semua dia ada.
camera
Yes.
around,
All in one
it
menu.
will automatically
ini
switch
agak
things
agak
around for
mudah
you,
lah, agak
including
mudah,
the
agak user
navigation
friendly
system.
untuk especially
The
untuk
full
orang yang
option there
baru
seems
awal
to
guna.
relate to how much the image fills the screen when you're looking at it. So you might have noticed when we looked at our front-facing camera, we only had the aspect ratio respected in this top and bottom elements, which is bars. I
Ikutkan
think
tadi
that if we set
berapa
the
tu?
full option,
Kat tempat
then we
cookie lah, buat
might
cookie rasa-rasanya.
have a
Kalau tak
full
silap.
frame
300
on there. So
lebih,
let's have a look and
USD.
switch back.
Tapi biasalah
Interface
masuk
is
di sini
very
macam-macam
easy to
tabs ni.
navigate on here. There you go. So you see now the full screen is used instead. So again, for selfie purposes, you end up with a lovely
memang
way of viewing
lompat,
what your
ada
footage is
depan
going to
ni.
look like. This is so easy to
Memang
navigate.
best lah.
You've got voice control as well on and off, but I've got no instruction
Tapi screen
manual
ni macam
because
lagi
it's
besar
not been
daripada
written yet.
GoPro.
So I'm not quite sure what commands we can give to it.
Kalau
We've
dapat-
got
juga
lock
lah.
as well,
Kalau
which is to
dapat
lock
macam
the screen. So if you're
dapat the
doing
whole
something,
screen lagi
perhaps
cantik
you're doing an
lagi
activity where the screen might get touched, that's to stop the settings from being altered. Then you've got brightness brightness, it's on 100% at the
frame
moment.
untuk
Volume
GoPro
is on
dia,
50, we can
padam.
slide that up. And then metering is
GoPro-
also
GoPro
for
memang
your
masalah pun.
exposure. So you can change it to spot
Ya, dia
metering.
punya frame
You
agak
can
tebal sikit
press
lah.
and hold to enter metering mode.
Dia
Nice.
almost
Oh, that's another shortcut
macam
then.
mini
So this is
juga.
a little bit like the Osmo Pocket where you've got the
Bentukan dia punya
little
screen.
yellow box which will set the
Jadi
exposure,
touch.
and you can see I can now press anywhere on the
Ni
screen
punya, you
and
could
it
be
sets
Pocket
the
Plus.
exposure accordingly.
Ni screen
So that's
untuk
what we've
GoPro.
got in settings.
So slightly
If we now
lebih kurang
swipe
macam
across
Pocket
from the
Plus-nya
right, bearing in mind that
belakang.
we're in video mode at the moment, we can change our FOV options. So we've got wide or medium. So only two options, but I think they might vary depending on which resolution we're in. You've also then got video formats, MOV or
Ada juga lah dia
MP4.
punya
But of course, these side
Dia-
options,
dia tak
the
setting ni,
settings
dia tak setting
here,
ni.
are going to be
Ah,
different
dia
depending
tengok dia
on
setting.
which video mode or photo mode you're in. If we slide up from the
FOV
bottom,
dia punya
we
field
get
of
Ah, ni
view.
video settings. So we're in
1080p,
video mode at the moment.
1080p.
This is where we set which resolution
Sampai
frame
4K.
rate we want to use.
So, 4K tapi
interestingly, if we
EIS
have
ada.
4K 4:3 at 30 frames
Oh,
a
EIS
second,
tak support?
EIS is
4:3,
not
yeah.
supported. So remember, EIS
Tapi
is
4K
electronic
30,
image stabilization.
L60.
Essentially, that's our
Yeah,
highest
60.
level
Ada,
we
ada,
have
ada.
on the Hero
Ah,
7.
ada 4K versi
If
ada.
we drop it down to 4K
Ni apa
30
ni?
frames a second,
4K 16 ada.
48,
4:3
50
ni.
and 60,
Dia punya
then we
resolution.
have got EIS supported.
punya
So the very highest resolution of 4K 4:3 aspect ratio doesn't support EIS, but to be honest, that's quite an unusual resolution. I don't think many people are going to be using that.
Dia punya
Most common is going to be
dia, field of view
4K
dia
at 60 frames.
145 darjah.
So
Ni
you
dia
notice
punya
we've
spec.
got EIS
spec.
enabled there. If I
That's
drop
2.8.
this down now,
Cuba
and
tengok
bring the
harga
camera
dia.
forward,
Ada
you'll
orang main
notice if
tanya
I
harga.
wiggle the camera around,
Harga,
the image is
tengok,
staying
kita sayap,
nice
kita sayap,
and
kita
static
sayap.
there.
Harga
And that's because
USD
EIS is doing
349.
its thing.
USD
But if we just
349.
drop the EIS
USD
setting
349.
off and do the same again,
USD
you'll notice now we are
349
seeing more
kalau
of a
dengan
kind of
teks.
traditional action camera view.
Dalam berapa? 1,500?
So EIS is doing
1,500
really
juga. Belum
nicely.
masuk
dah
there,
1,500.
considering
Dua
that,
juga.
again, this is electronic. There's no actual mechanical gimbal on
Tapi
this.
kalau macam
So
GoPro
if we
ni
want to
pun,
change mode
dia
now
tak ada
as a video
beza
mode,
sangat dari
simply
segi
press our quick
harga
settings
tu
button
daripada
on the left,
overseas dengan
and
sini
then
kan.
we can slide between our
banyak sangat
modes.
beza.
We've got
Dalam-
slow
tak
motion,
silap dalam
we've got
RM40 je.
time lapse, and we've also
Tak tahu
got photo. Let's have a
Macam
quick
mana
look
dia
at
punya harga dia
slow
apa
motion.
semua
macam ni.
Kita
In terms
sekarang
of
tak boleh
resolution for
estimate
slow
berapa harga
motion,
dia
you've got
masuk dekat Malaysia. Itu
1080p
just yang kat
at
luar
4
tu.
or 8. You've also got
Anggaran lah,
option
anggaran.
720p for slow
Mungkin lah
motion
estimate.
there as well. Press quick settings again. Let's have a look at time lapse.
Feature
Now,
dia lebih
everybody
kurang,
will be
GoPro
very
lebih kurang.
pleased to see that you can actually set the time lapse as low as half a second here. The Pocket has a limitation, I think, of 2 or 3 seconds as its minimum. And some people have just been
time lapse.
asking on one of my
Time lapse,
videos,
time
I
table,
wish the Pocket
in
would go
between,
lower. So that's great.
snap.
Goes all the way up to, wow, 60 seconds. There you go. You've also got a drop down here, which is nice. You can take them at 4K as well. That's great. The Osmo Pocket only captures time lapse at 1080p, so that's a really nice bonus. One other thing to note as well in time lapse, if we swipe to the right, you can choose whether it records the JPEGs and the videos or just the videos. And then finally, let's have a look at photo.
Dia boleh sama
And
ada kau nak
swipe
JPEG
up,
dengan
we've
video
got lots of
ataupun
options here
just
again,
video
6
saja.
by
Memang
9
dia
or
telah
4
dah
by 3,
combine dia
and
terus.
also a countdown. So the before the
Macam-
photo is taken, you get a nice countdown to
Dulu
give you
kita kena
time to
stitch kan,
run
gitu
over
kan.
and get
Gambar
into
tu jadi
position.
motion
Swiping
picture
from the right,
Yeah,
we've
got a
got
menu
JPEG
piece,
format RAW, which is lovely, or JPEG and RAW. So that's going to be definitely favorited by lots of you professional photographers out there. So just another note about quick switch. When we're in there, you'll notice the little buttons top right hand corner. If we press on one of those, you can now change the order of the quick switch options, and you can even remove some. So I've actually removed some options here to make options that I will never use disappear. So I had disabled HDR
DJI
video,
memang
for example,
terkenal
which I can now
dengan dia
enable by just simply
UI
ticking
agak
that.
user-friendly.
Now in my quick switch, I'll have the option for HDR video, and
Nampak
there it
macam
is. So HDR video is a very interesting one. Again, sliding over from the right, we get FOV options as well as the file format. Swiping up from the bottom, we've got 4K 60 by 9 at 30 frames a second. So it'll be very interesting to see just how nice and how different HDR video looks to regular video from this camera. Just finally as well, regardless of which quick switch mode you're in, you can always press on the button bottom left here in the screen, and that will take you to some quick options as well, where you can toggle between the modes in each key mode. So here we've got AEB photos, burst photos and timed, plus custom as well, where you can create your own custom mode if you wish. So that's a really good detailed look at the Osmo Action. First of all as well, just to add, sorry about the state of my hands and my fingers. I've been building a wall this week in my garden, so my hands are a little bit destroyed. But anyway, just as another little comparison, here's my old Hero 4 camera, the two of them side by side. I know that the Hero series haven't really changed dramatically in terms of size over the years, but that's just to give a little comparison as well. You see what I mean about the Osmo Action being slightly longer there. Anyway, very excited to get this out and tested. So without further ado, let's go out and put it through its paces next. Enjoyed this video? Then hit thumbs up and subscribe now to say thanks. And also to avoid missing out on future exclusive reviews from Drone Kajang. Part 2 is coming right up, where we'll be flying to Norway to put the new DJI Osmo Action through its paces in our full and comprehensive test review. In the meantime, let us know what you think about this brand new product. Links to it, by the way, are in the video description.
Hopefully dia lebih rugged lah sikit daripada GoPro kan. Tak salah dia punya depth dalam 11 meter kalau tak silap.
Oh, 11.
Welcome Abang Zul Rizman, welcome.
Okay, jap, kita nak buka satu lagi. Kita nak buka yang next video. Kita tengok.
So kalau korang nak tanya apa-apa boleh tanya, tak ada masalah. So korang akan cuba cari kat jawapan.
Kita akan cuba cari live secara live.
Especially dari segi specs, dari segi apa itu OSMO Action. Tak ada masalah, boleh tanya.
Mana tu?
Bawah sekali jap. Part tu.
Alright,
cun.
The brand new DJI Osmo Action has just been launched and we've got an exclusive early review of it. You've already seen us unbox it and run through the interface. Well, now it's time to test exactly what it's capable of. So keep watching. So that's a close inspection of the Osmo Action, but you probably want to see it in action. Well, I've flown over to Norway, which seems to be the perfect place to test it out, where people aren't going to be looking at this new product and wondering what it is. So without further ado, let's fly to Norway. And just to add, unless noted at the bottom of the screen, all of the footage you're about to see was filmed with the DJI Osmo Action. So it's time to give the Osmo Action a good test. I'm walking along at the moment with the forward-facing camera, so essentially it's in selfie mode. And I love the big, bright screen. This camera works really, really well. Rotating around and see what the EIS is doing. It's just doing its thing to keep the image nice and stable. Because at the moment I am walking along a rather uneven bridge. In this test, I'm really giving the Osmo Action some grief by shaking it in all directions to test the EIS, and I'm being far more aggressive than perhaps shown because the movements are softened by electronic image stabilization, a system that DJI has named Lockstep. However, if I now split the screen with the Osmo Pocket, you can see that the mechanical stabilization actually looks much smoother. That's because it's stabilizing the roll axis as well, something that the DJI Osmo Action can't do. However, for most action sports, you want the roll axis included. That's also known as FPV mode. Now for a bit of running. I'm actually holding the camera by hand in this example, and therefore it's not ideal as you'd normally have it. So apologies for the left to right movement, but considering that I'm running, the footage remains fairly stable. All of the footage that you're seeing is unedited and fresh out of the camera. Despite that, the colours, contrast and saturation really are quite beautifully balanced. Footage from this camera really won't need a lot of post-editing work. So this is regular walking with EIS disabled. I'm not doing anything here specifically to try and keep the camera level. Just put some steps as well. Now let's enable EIS. And the difference is quite apparent. Again, I'm not doing anything to try and hold it any more stable. I'm walking at the moment along this bridge, but the EIS is really doing its thing nicely. Now you do tend to find with EIS, it doesn't quite have the smooth panning effect because EIS is constantly fighting to stabilize the image. Therefore, whenever you yaw or rotate around, EIS is going to want to try and hold on to the point that you're facing in, or the direction, sorry, and it will try its best to rotate with you, but you do end up with a little bit more of a jerky effect. So you'll notice on the sides of the image right now, as I'm rotating left and right, it does tend to realise that you want to rotate the camera, and then the EIS is softened, but you do get a much better effect with a mechanical gimbal. So for cinematic footage, you really do want the Osmo Pocket. One area where EIS normally really struggles is in low light, and that's because EIS analyses the image in order to stabilise it. Low light means that there are fewer points of reference. I walked through the hotel lobby to test this, and the usual symptoms were unfortunately visible. Slight vibration effects at each point where EIS is fighting to stabilise the image, plus the ISO of course is pushed right up in auto mode for this shot. Hence the image is quite grainy. It doesn't do too badly in this test, at least no worse than the GoPro Hero 7. So while we're here in front of the roaring fire, let's test out slow motion, and we'll start firstly by testing 4x mode. This is the same as the Osmo Pocket and at 1080p, but unfortunately there isn't any slow motion in 4K. The better aspect of the Osmo Action is that the slow motion mode doesn't crop the image in 4x mode as the Pocket does. Next, slow motion in 8x mode, and you'll notice that the image gets slightly darker, and I guess that's because the shutter speed is adjusted to cater for the higher frame rate, but still the effect is really good. During lighter or daytime conditions, this won't be an issue, as you'll see in the next test. Outdoors, slow motion works beautifully, as you can see in this sea shot, and I couldn't help but be a bit silly here. There's my weekly exercise completed. Finally, a drop test. Now firstly in 4x slow motion, and I do love not having to worry about the focus. Then the same test in 8x slow motion, a lovely effect in both cases. In the early firmware, there was a feature called FOV, which allowed switching between wide and normal. In the latest firmware, it's called D-Warp, and it's designed to try and counteract that fisheye effect. So when shooting in 4K, you do end up with a bit of a fisheye effect. But there is a D-Warp feature on the Osmo Action, so if we enable that now, and the difference is subtle, but it is just about enough to actually try to avoid that fisheye effect a little bit, but not massively. While I like the idea of this feature, I'd much prefer to see a GoPro-style FOV setting of wide, narrow and normal, which actually censor crops. This would provide far more flexibility, although of course you can always crop and scan the footage in post-editing. So another interesting feature of the Osmo Action is the voice control, which obviously the competitor, the Hero 7, also has. On that basis, apparently, I can say, stop recording. It actually works. So I'm now recording with the Osmo Pocket. If I say start recording, and the Osmo Action starts recording as well. Now I don't know what else I can say because I've got no instruction manual at the moment. But that's quite useful again if you're skiing or you're doing some sort of sporting activity where the Osmo Action is on your head, or somewhere where you can't quite access the buttons. Obviously it's not going to work when you're scuba diving because you'll be underwater.
Osmo.
Anyway, stop recording. So I've just placed the Osmo Action over there. Do you reckon it'll start recording if I shout from here? Start recording. It actually did. So, okay, let's go a little bit further away. Stop recording. Yeah, that worked as well. So, the range on the voice recognition is quite good as well. Although you might feel a little bit stupid shouting controls to a camera.
Start recording! Okay lah, colour wise, action camera is action camera lah.
Now another really nice point about the Osmo Action also is that I don't need to worry about focus issues. It's an infinity lens, a bit like the GoPros, multi-word, but basically you can just point and shoot without worrying about whether you are in focus. Of course, the difference with the Osmo Pocket there is that the Pocket does have a mechanical focus, which has pros and cons, because you can end up with a much more cinematic looking image with the background where you've got a lower aperture,
However, sometimes you just want to get the camera up and running, shoot and take some nice video without worrying about focus.
Without doubt, one of my favourite features of this camera is that full colour front screen. It isn't touch sensitive, but for vlogging, it's just perfect in terms of brightness, colour and size.
So now that we're outside, we can really get the most of the screens on the new OSMO Action. This front-facing screen is really nice, really bright, very clear, and in outdoor daylight, you can see it very clearly. The backlighting is really strong as well. And of course, if we hold down the quick shortcut button on the side, it enables the rear screen, which also is equally as bright. But I love the fact that it also takes up almost the entire rear of the camera, so that when you are out and about, you've got a really nice way to review footage that you've already captured before.
Everyone loves a good time-lapse shot, and this camera allows captures down to half a second a shot, compared to the 3-second minimum of the OSMO Pocket. And with this mode, you can capture some pretty breathtaking results.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
That shot was captured at 1080p, but as mentioned in our Part 1 review, the OSMO Action even captures time-lapse at 4K, and that means beautifully crisp time-lapse shots with loads of detail.
So here's another feature of the OSMO Action which might make you favourite. It's got a speaker so that when we watch footage back, we can actually hear the audio without having to use any kind of headphone adapter. That is great because, of course, the OSMO Pocket doesn't have a speaker. That, for me, is a bit of a pain, actually. So this is just how new the product is. I've just actually received a firmware update for it, and it has actually changed some of the menu options already. First of all, I notice it fires up and starts up ready for use much more quickly now. But anyway, I'm just going to quickly connect it to my iPhone, which is pink. It's not my iPhone, I borrowed it. I can't believe I'm using an iPhone. At this time, the
miss moment.
Moment yang penting the Android app will also be available. So I'm going to fire up Mimo. I've got the DJI Osmo Action here ready. It's actually automatically connected to it because I've already activated it, which didn't take long at all. Press OK, and now Mimo starts up with the live stream. And if you see there, there's not a lot of latency between the two, and I can move the camera around, and I've got my picture live, and it looks beautiful quality on there. Now, if you're already familiar with the Osmo Pocket app, then you'll be very familiar with the interface here. You can switch between modes very easily. And unlike the Osmo Pocket, it's great that the Osmo Action already has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth built into it. So on the left, you've got loads of modes here for shutter, exposure, and all of that. You've also got options for the type of shooter modes, loads of options here for photo, and of course, if you switch to video, you've got different options again, such as your frame rate and your video resolution. Almost identical to the Osmo Pocket. In fact, obviously it's the same app. We've also got de-warp there, which changes the picture to avoid any kind of fisheye that you do get on the wider FOVs, which is nice. And obviously also with EIS on this bigger screen, you can also see the difference. So without EIS on, every single movement there is very, very obvious. Whereas if I just enable EIS quickly, you'll now see that as I move the camera around, it's almost as if I've got a gimbal on there. Very, very steady. So I'm filming this on the Osmo Pocket, which unfortunately to get Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functionality, you're going to need to buy an additional accessory, which is the base mount. But luckily the Osmo Action has inbuilt Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which means using my phone I can get a live stream live from the device, which I just sat over there. You can see me now, in fact. Now, that live stream, let's test the range to see how far away we can go. It looks like actually that stream is starting to break up already, probably about 10 meters away at the moment, I'd say. So not particularly long range there, but that is normally what you expect for Bluetooth. Devices like this normally use Bluetooth, not Wi-Fi, because Bluetooth is ultra low power compared to Wi-Fi. So that's understandable. Just out of interest, we'll switch now to the Osmo Action's audio.
Itu pun still lag.
Nampak latency dia okey. Tak ada dia punya latency between apa namanya, kita punya phone dengan ni.
Interesting range test, not particularly long range, but then the live stream capability on devices like this is not necessarily for long range use. It's just so that you can turn the recording on and off and change other features if you've got the device mounted on your head or somewhere where you can't see the screen particularly easily.
Yes, it takes photos as well, and here's a few that I captured during the day. Compared to the photos that I've taken with the Osmo Pocket, the Osmo Action photos are far more cinematic naturally in colour, temperature and contrast. However, because of the fixed focal range, photos of objects close to the lens will result in blur. The closest that you can get seems to be about 60 centimetres. HDR video mode is another very interesting feature of this new camera. It doesn't support EIS or more than 30 frames a second, but it does capture video across 3 exposure stops, merging them in real time to create a really dynamic image.
Nice.
So this video is currently in normal video mode, where we've got very, very bright sky, lots of sun coming in from the right-hand side. Because of that, we've got quite dark ground. This is quite a typical scenario when you're videoing in bright light. So now let's switch to HDR video. So we're now in HDR video. The key thing to note is that HDR video only supports 30 frames a second, but you will notice that the ground and the buildings are a bit brighter. The FOV seems actually to be slightly wider, interestingly. But overall, a nicer, more balanced picture there. Not as much of a difference as I was expecting.
Stabilization.
The other thing to note as well with HDR video is that EIS is disabled. So you won't get any EIS when you're in HDR mode.
Now for the bit that I've been dreading, the waterproof test. The Osmo Action is waterproof to 11 meters. My testing involves plunging a $350 early release product into the raging sea of Norway. Plus, the weather had taken a turn for the worse, but I had to crack on anyway.
So I know this looks a little bit crude, but the weather has picked up now, so it's not going to be able to actually get down into the water. So I've got a load of string on my little Osmo Action, and I'm just going to lower it down into the water and see what happens. Let's hope it doesn't get stuck on the bottom, because I am not climbing into that. It's pretty cold now.
11 meter, lebih kurang 73.
Dalam dah. Untuk scuba
parah. Aku tak tahu kalau dia boleh masuk kan, dia kata boleh masuk GoPro punya casing.
casing.
Mungkin boleh beli deeper lah.
Macam Sungai Kelang ni. 4 meter ke dalam.
Tapi sebab dia low light, dia kurang. So bila masuk dalam air, dia kadang cahaya tak cukup. Tak berapa nak ni sangat.
After dunking it into the water, as you'll notice, the microphones are not working properly as expected, and I believe that's fairly standard for any device which has waterproofing and exposed microphones, including mobile phones. They take a short time to dry out, and then the microphones work again. And luckily for me, after a short time, the Osmo Action was back to normal.
So I've just pulled it back out of the water. It's got like a weird coating on it, and it actually seems to repel water. I guess that's part of the waterproofing. I did lower it down in its little protective action case, so if I just take it out of that, and I have checked the SD card port and everything like that. That's all completely dry inside there, which is good. So I think in terms of the waterproof test, it's passed.
Back into the hotel now, and time to test low light performance. Firstly through corridors where it's very dimly lit. Now EIS normally doesn't perform well under these conditions, but the Osmo Action does seem to do a fairly good job, especially as I start to run indoors. The ISO, however, is clearly being bumped up automatically, and so the picture is pretty grainy, but for unedited footage, the colours and vibrance are good.
So now for a night test with the Osmo Action. I am walking at the moment, hopefully the image looks nice and smooth. However, we're on auto where the ISO has been bumped up to its maximum automatically, which is 3200, so I'm expecting this image might look a little bit grainy. but overall the image does look nice on the screen.
Tapi still
But if we rotate to the left now,
low light,
the slightly darker area, you'll notice that we are now suffering from an issue of very, very minimal light. We can't really see a lot here, especially if I point the camera down to the ground where you can see virtually nothing. But the Osmo Action has a trick up its sleeve if we now switch to HDR video mode. And immediately, what a difference. Again, if we point to the ground, we can now see the ground, but HDR really does make a big difference because of the high dynamic range element. But 2 big points to consider with HDR video mode. 30 frames a second is all you're going to get at 4K, no higher than that. Plus, the bigger issue is that EIS is not supported in HDR video mode. But if you are going to be shooting at night, it's better to be able to get some video than none at all. So therefore, that's quite a nice feature.
So they're my initial thoughts on the brand new Osmo Action, and links to this are in the video description if you want to buy one. As mentioned earlier, the Osmo Pocket and the Osmo Action are for very different purposes. I'm glad to have both in my collection now, and you'll see lots more videos from me on both of these great products. In the meantime, comment below with what you think of this brand new product from DJI. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and of course, click subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.
Alright, thank you bro.
There he is.
So, rasanya itu saja daripada kami. Dan macam mana bang? Abang rasa Osmo Action ni macam mana? Boleh pergi jauh ke?
Still rasa boleh pergi lagi sebenarnya Osmo Action ni. Macam biasa DJI ni dia akan sentiasa update dia punya feature dia, Metro firmware dia lah. So tengok apa yang akan dia boleh, orang kata apa yang dia boleh keluarkan lagi. Tu dia punya ni lah.
Alright, so kita tunggu barang ni sampai ke Malaysia dulu, dan kalau ada kesempatan kita akan buat review, buat hands on review, and then kita akan buat field test dan juga tunjukkan kepada semua orang dekat luar sana. So itu saja untuk hari ini, dan terima kasih. Jangan lupa sahur. Jangan lupa sahur. Pada yang berpuasa pada hari esok, jangan lupa sahur. Okey, dan jangan lupa berpuasa. Itu
jangan lupa apa? Like and follow page Drone Kajang.
Like and follow page Drone Kajang. So kalau korang perlukan barang-barang DJI, spare part ataupun anything berkenaan dengan DJI dan juga barang-barang drone, korang boleh datang ke Drone Kajang di Kajang of course.
Di Prima Saujana Kajang.
Okey, alamat apa semua ada dekat Facebook, korang boleh tengok. Like and share guys, like and share. Thank you very much. Terima kasih.
Tapi kalau korang nak tanya apa-apa pun boleh WhatsApp kita orang tanya. Kalau nak tanya pasal nak survey pasal drone, nak tanya pasal drone, apa-apa boleh tanya, tak ada masalah. Selagi korang boleh, kita akan jawab. Okey, yang mana kita tak tahu kita akan jawab. Kalau kita tak tahu, kita akan buat research dulu baru kita akan jawab. So itu saja untuk malam ni guys. Alright, kita gerak dulu nak pergi sahur jap. Nak pergi sahur lagi siapa? Okey, siapa? Satu lagi boleh dekat follow kita orang punya core partner. Ini Sky Production dekat mana? Page Ini Sky Production lah. So boleh like, boleh follow diorang juga. Alright, so thank you very much for joining us malam ni. Nanti insyaAllah akan ada lagi.
Alright, so ini kita punya sebenarnya actually a pilot test untuk live streaming Drone Kajang. So kita akan buat this from time to time lah. Kalau ada apa-apa nak kita perbaiki, kita akan
boleh drop comment, boleh komen kat bawah.
Boleh komen dekat bawah nanti. Nanti kita orang pun baru lagi dalam benda ni. So harap-harap kita akan dapat footage ataupun dapat buat streaming yang sangat sempurna lah lepas ni. Kita akan improve from time to time. So itu saja untuk malam ni guys.
Alright.
Terima kasih banyak.
Terima kasih banyak.
Assalamualaikum.